Listen carefully, because this might be the moment that changes everything. Most people don't lose because life is unfair. They lose because they never learned how to control themselves. Their mouth ruins opportunities. Their mood destroys consistency. Their money habits trap them in cycles they can't escape. And the truth? If you can't control your reactions, you can't control your results. Winning is not about luck. It's not about talent. It's about training your mind to stay disciplined when it's hard, silent when it's necessary, calm when it's chaotic, and smart when it comes to your resources. Because life will test you in conversations, in emotions, and in finances. And in those moments, you either react like everyone else or you respond like a winner. This is not just about success. This is about becoming the kind of person who cannot be broken, distracted, or defeated. Train your mind, control your mouth, master your mood, protect your money, or stay exactly where you are. The choice is yours. Words are never just words. They are signals of discipline, intent, and self-respect. A man who cannot control his mouth reveals more than his thoughts. He exposes his level of mastery over himself. From a man's perspective, speaking impulsively feels like strength, like dominance, like proving a point. But in reality, it often shows a lack of control. And lack of control is the fastest way to lose respect in any room that matters. Silence, when used with purpose, becomes power. Men who understand this don't rush to fill every gap in conversation, don't react to every insult, and don't argue to win. They choose when to speak so their words carry weight. Other men observe this and measure it as strength, not weakness. Because in high-pressure situations, the one who speaks less but thinks more is the one who leads. Women, however, interpret a man's words differently. They listen not just to what he says, but how he says it. Emotional outbursts, careless promises, or disrespectful tones signal instability. Control, clarity, and calm communication signal safety, confidence, and leadership. A man's mouth becomes the mirror of his mind, revealing whether he is ruled by emotion or guided by discipline. Emotions are the most honest reflection of a man's inner world. But left unchecked, they become the loudest prison. A man who allows anger, frustration, or insecurity to dictate his behavior gives away his power without realizing it. From a man's perspective, mood swings often feel justified. Stress at work, traffic, unmet expectations, but every reaction shapes the narrative of who he is to the world. Losing control in small moments builds patterns that define him more than any achievement ever could. The ability to regulate mood is not weakness, it is strength disguised as patience. Men who master their emotional responses create an invisible shield around themselves. They walk into challenges without fear of letting frustration leak into decisions, conversations, or relationships. Other men recognize this control as leadership, respect, and reliability, while those who react impulsively are remembered for chaos, not courage. Women perceive mood in a different, equally powerful way. Calmness signals security, stability, and emotional intelligence. Irritability, inconsistency, or passive aggression triggers doubt and distance. A man who can maintain equilibrium, even in stressful situations, communicates confidence without words. His mood becomes a map of his character, showing whether he is the master of his circumstances or a victim of them. Discipline is the bridge between intention and results, yet most men underestimate its power because emotions feel immediate and urgent. Impulse whispers louder than reason, making short-term reactions seem necessary, even heroic. But every time a man chooses emotion over discipline, he trades long-term growth for fleeting satisfaction. Success, influence, and respect are never given to those who surrender to every feeling. They are earned by the ones who pause, think, and act with strategy. Men who understand this create a rhythm in their lives that others envy. They train their habits, their schedules, and their reactions to function beyond the whims of temporary feelings. Anger does not dictate their words. Desire does not dictate their choices. And fear does not dictate their actions. This internal governance becomes a quiet authority. It attracts respect from peers and admiration from those who measure character, not bravado. Women notice this instinctively. A man guided by discipline signals reliability, stability, and emotional security. A man ruled by emotion signals unpredictability and risk. Discipline translates into consistency in words, actions, and promises, and consistency builds trust faster than charisma ever could. Every decision, every response, and every restraint becomes proof that he is a man who controls his world rather than being controlled by it. Money is never just currency. It is a reflection of a man's priorities, discipline, and vision. How he earns, spends, and invests reveals more about his mindset than any conversation ever could. Many men chase instant gratification, confusing spending with freedom, and indulgence with success. But those patterns are invisible chains. They shape behavior, limit opportunity, and signal a lack of control to the world. A man who masters his finances demonstrates foresight, patience, and self-respect. He doesn't allow impulses or peer pressure to dictate his choices. Every saving habit, every calculated investment, and every disciplined budget, BCO, means a declaration. He thinks long-term, values security, and understands the power of leverage. This control over money reflects control over life itself, turning wealth into a tool rather than a trap. Women interpret financial behavior as a measure of reliability and intelligence. Careless spending communicates instability, lack of planning, or short-term thinking. Conversely, a man who manages his resources wisely signals confidence, responsibility, and leadership. His money habits become an unspoken story of character and intention, revealing whether he is building a life with purpose or drifting through circumstances without direction. Men who react impulsively are giving their power away to circumstances, emotions, or other people. A sharp insult, a sudden obstacle, or a frustrating conversation can trigger a chain reaction that feels justified in the moment, but has consequences that last far longer. Reacting is immediate, loud, and exhausting, but it rarely produces results that matter. Responding, however, requires pause, perspective, and purpose. A man who responds does not ignore challenges. He studies them, interprets them, and acts in a way that aligns with his long-term vision. He separates his identity from the situation, ensuring that his decisions are guided by strategy rather than emotion. Other men notice this control and instinctively measure him as someone capable of leadership and influence. He becomes the standard against which impulsive behavior is judged. Women perceive this distinction even more acutely. A man who reacts is unpredictable, unstable, and emotionally volatile. A man who responds communicates calm, reliability, and security. His measured actions show that he is in control of himself and his environment, signaling trustworthiness and strength. Every response, from a business negotiation to a heated personal discussion, becomes a reflection of his character, priorities, and discipline. Responding is not about avoiding emotion. It is about mastering it, ensuring that each decision reinforces his goals rather than undermines them. Men who respond consistently create momentum in their lives, while those who react consistently create obstacles. It is this choice between reaction and response that separates those who lead from those who follow. Success is not a lottery ticket. Men often wait for the right opportunity, the right moment, or the right person to push them forward, believing that luck will carry them. But waiting for chance is surrendering control of your life to forces you cannot influence. True rise, true growth comes from deliberate choices, disciplined habits, and the conscious management of every aspect of yourself, your thoughts, your words, your emotions, and your resources. Control begins with the self. A man who masters his own mind refuses to be swept away by impulses, fleeting moods, or external pressures. He decides how he reacts before circumstances dictate it. Every decision is intentional. Every action reinforces the reality he wants to create. Other men measure this control instinctively. They respect it, follow it, and often fear it. Control signals capability, strength, and authority, and it separates those who drift from those who lead. Women read control differently, yet just as acutely. They see it in consistency, confidence, and emotional stability. A man who can govern himself signals reliability, trustworthiness, and resilience. In contrast, men who lack control appear volatile, unpredictable, or dependent on external factors. Control over your life is not just about personal achievement. It is a measure of your presence, your influence, and the energy you bring into every interaction, every relationship, and every decision. Financial control, emotional control, and control over your communication amplify this effect. Men who structure their lives around purpose rather than reaction create momentum that compounds over time. Every choice, from disciplined spending to measured speech, builds authority, clarity, and freedom. Rising is never a matter of luck. It is a matter of intentionality, foresight, and the relentless control of what you can govern, shaping a life that aligns with your vision rather than surrendering to circumstance. Control becomes the invisible engine behind every success, the foundation that transforms ambition into achievement and potential into reality.